An English woman named Shanna Butler experienced this when she found out she was pregnant. She and her fiancé were really happy, but they could not say the same for their dog. Their dog began acting really strange. When Shanna and Ricky first heard that Shanna was pregnant, they could not believe their luck. They already tried for a few months to get pregnant, so when the good news was finally there, they were really excited. But not everyone was as excited as Ricky and Shanna. While everything proceeded nicely during the pregnancy, Keola began to act really strange with poking, licking and barking at Shanna's belly. At first, Shanna and Ricky ignored the dog's behavior, not realizing what Keola was actually trying to tell them. When the doctor saw the ultrasound, he was shocked and he had to call the police immediately. Shanna regretted that she did not listen to her dog earlier. Shanna and Ricky were together ever since they were 16 years old. They moved in together and adopted a dog named Keola. But their relationship wasn't perfect. Like every relationship, something was still bugging Shanna. But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our upcoming stories. The couple were slowly building up their lives together over the next couple of years. There were still some things that were starting to bug Shanna. Something that Shanna has had trouble with from the very first moment that she met Ricky up to the present day. By the time she and Ricky had been together for years, but he was still very secretive about his past, and it was starting to worry Sarah more and more. What could he be hiding from her, or what was so difficult for him to talk about? Shanna had asked him to tell her more on multiple occasions, but was always met by the same kind of reluctant responses. Ricky claims that he doesn't have a family anymore, and that it hurts too much to talk about everything. At this point, Shanna had just accepted it as the reality of the situation. Ricky had been this way ever since she knew him, and he was probably never going to change. But luckily, this secretiveness was one of the few flaws Shanna had in her eyes, and she could live with it. But maybe not to Sarah's surprise, but definitely to her disappointment, Mark had only invited his friends to the wedding, and it was also only the friends he had met in the time that she knew him. Not a single person was there that had known Mark from before he moved to the city at the age of 16. At first, they struggled to even get pregnant. Ricky and Shanna began to doubt themselves. Maybe there was something that they did not necessarily know about their health condition. They decided to see a doctor. The doctor did some tests to check everything was all right with both Ricky and Shanna. After the test, the couple had to wait a few days. The doctor told them that he would call them with the results. Only a week after their medical checks, Shanna found out that she was pregnant. It was like a gift from heaven. They were thrilled with this news and shared it with all their loved ones. Everyone was obviously very happy for them. Their dog Keola did not seem happy with the pregnancy. In fact, it started to act weird. At first, Keola often licked the belly of Shanna, but later he started to do other strange things. Shanna even got scared of his behavior. At a certain point, Keola started to bark quite aggressively every time he saw Shanna's belly. They couldn't figure out why. Did he feel threatened? Or was there something wrong with Keola himself? To make sure everything was okay, they went to see the vet for Keola. Maybe he was signaling that he did not feel okay. The vet did some medical checks, but could not find anything that was not okay or strange. Shanna went to her mother to gather some advice. She did not know what to do, so she thought that her mother would be capable of giving the appropriate advice, and she got exactly the reaction from her mother that she expected. Her mother told her not to get carried away with the things she read on the internet, as they are often quite misleading. She had to follow her own gut and decide together with Ricky, so she did that. As they wanted to make sure everything was okay with their baby, they went to another medical check. Shanna was already 18 weeks pregnant, so the doctor could definitely tell them whether the baby was okay. In fear, they waited for the test results. After a few hours, the doctor came back to Shanna with good news. Everything was all right, so they had nothing to worry about. She was told to come back when she was 25 weeks into her pregnancy for a new ultrasound. Maybe Keola just had to get used to not being the only family member anymore. But a few weeks later, they found out that that wasn't the case. At 23 weeks, Shanna suddenly experienced severe back pain. She did not feel all right and told Ricky that they had to go to the hospital. Shanna told him that it felt that she had to give birth already. Ricky didn't think twice when Shanna asked him to drive to the hospital. But there was one thing that stopped them from going as fast as they could. It was rush hour. Ricky did everything he could to avoid the traffic. But eventually, they got totally stuck in traffic. Ricky saw only one opportunity to quickly come to the hospital. Ricky called an ambulance. Since they were stuck in traffic, they would be here for quite a while. An ambulance had the right to go through the traffic. After a few minutes, the ambulance arrived and Shauna was able to go to the hospital quite fast. At the hospital, the doctor immediately wanted to make an ultrasound to check whether everything was okay with the baby. But during the ultrasound, the doctor's face expression changed. He actually looked quite shocked. As soon as he was done, he said something that worried Shauna. "I have to call the police." Shauna was obviously shocked by this. Why did the police get involved? And why did he not tell what was going on exactly? Shauna and Ricky as well became more and more angry about the whole situation. When was this going to end? After a few minutes, the police arrived and they immediately asked Ricky to come with them. "Sir, we have some questions for you about your wife." Ricky was mind blown. What did they want to know about her? At first, they seemed to ask normal questions. They wanted to know who Ricky and Shauna were and where they lived. But after that, the tone of the agents changed. They began to ask strange questions which shocked Ricky. They asked not only about who they were, but also where they've been the last weeks. And next to that, they asked strange questions about their pregnancy. Why did the police want to know things about the pregnancy of Shauna? It didn't make sense to Ricky. Not only was Ricky surprised by the questions, he got a little bit angry at the police as well. Why did they want to know all of this? In the heat of the moment, he said something which the police did not appreciate. "Go and do your job, but leave me alone," he said. But he soon regretted that decision. The police didn't like his reaction, as they deemed their questions as reasonable for their investigation. Therefore, they took Ricky with them to the police station. Ricky panicked, as he did not want to leave his wife alone in a hospital who may had to give birth in a few hours. Unfortunately, Ricky didn't have a choice and had to go with the police. They promised him that they would explain the situation over there. But at the same time, Shauna panicked as she saw her husband leaving the hospital with the police. "We have to do a surgery," said the doctor. It was necessary for their baby. The doctor couldn't tell more at the moment, since he was instructed by the police not to tell anything. The doctor told Shauna that he had a choice, however. She could choose whether or not she wanted the surgery. But she did not have to think long, as it would be better for their baby. She immediately said yes. Now she only had to wait for the surgery and her husband Ricky. After a short hour of waiting, she went to the surgery room. Meanwhile, Ricky got to the police station where the police asked more questions. They seemed quite simple. But after a while, they took Ricky to an interrogation room. Ricky obviously got more and more angry. First, he had to go to the police station and now into the interrogation room. What was going on? He could not figure it out. But then the police finally explained themselves a bit more. All of a sudden, on the other side of the window, there were 5 criminals standing next to each other. Ricky had to say whether he recognized someone or not. And to his shock, he saw someone familiar. All Ricky could think was how this person ended up in a police cell. It was his own doctor. But why was he there? As soon as Ricky told the police that he recognized his own daughter, the police gave him some more context, as it was very strange for Ricky to be in this situation. The police told Ricky that Shauna's doctor found an illegal medical chip inside her body. This chip could regulate the medicines needed. However, this wasn't legal yet. Ricky's doctor apparently put it in the medicines of Shauna, which are on Ricky's name. Now everything made sense. But this wasn't the end of it all for Ricky, as Shauna was still in the hospital. Ricky rushed himself to the hospital, thanks to the police who drove him there. But when Ricky arrived, he couldn't find Shauna anywhere. Where was she? He panicked. Was everything all right? Then he saw Shauna's doctor. He ran towards him, panicking. The doctor asked him to be calm for other patients, but Ricky struggled with that. After a few minutes of anger, the dust settled down and the doctor could finally tell Ricky where Shauna was. The doctor told Ricky what he already knew: she had a medical chip inside her body that needed to be removed, as it was illegal. But Ricky still didn't know whether the baby was all right. The doctor asked Ricky to follow him. Ricky followed the doctor all the way to the surgery room, where Shauna was. Ricky immediately asked the doctor whether she and the baby are okay. Luckily, the doctor had good news. Shauna and the baby were both okay. She did not have to give birth yet, but they only needed to remove the medical chip, which probably was the reason for the severe back pain. After that, Shauna was allowed to go home. After 40 weeks of pregnancy, she finally gave birth to a girl named Julia. After all, this was a good story to tell their newborn son when he would be older. Next to that, Shauna and Ricky learned to always listen to the instincts of their dog.